It's Wizards versus Lesbians, a podcast for your ears. Hello and welcome to Wizards versus Lesbians. My name is Isaac.
I'm Alexis.
And today we are discussing To the Resurrection Station by Eleanor Arneson.
We sure are.
So, Alexis, would you like to do the plot?
I will attempt to do the plot.
Mm-hmm.
So Belinda is a young woman, college student, who on another planet, who is swept up in suddenly in a gothic romance novel where her guardian appears and drags her off to a faraway manor and tells her that she has to, she's going to be forced to marry this young man when she really doesn't want to because she is extremely a lesbian. And then there's a spaceship and robots and anyway, the plot, it's really impossible to describe this plot without spoiling pretty fast because it's divided into 4 chapters and every chapter is doing a completely different thing. But let's just say Belinda has a lot of adventures and perhaps learns to be a little bit less racist.
Yes. A few important things to note. This is a retro episode.
Oh, is this a retro episode?
This book came out in the mid-'80s, but was apparently written in the 70s. B.
This is filling in a key gap in our retro episodes because, as Lee has pointed out, it's kind of ridiculous that we have not covered Eleanor Arneson before.
Yes, although much of Eleanor Arneson's subsequent fiction, including the books that she is most famous for, sort of go beyond the lesbian remit into just
gender.
How weird can we make it, basically, exactly.
But that's very influential to the microgenre, much as like C.J. Cherryh is.
Exactly. And it is just a pleasure to be able to do some Eleanor Arneson because I really love Eleanor Arneson's work.
Yeah, I think she's a really underappreciated science fiction writer from that era.
Agreed. I mean, and still writing, incidentally. And
yes.
Also, having read this book, I'm reminded that I also really love Eleanor Arneson as a person in a completely parasocial way. There's something about this book that just makes me go, aw. And so if I make like bold claims about who Eleanor Arneson is as we go through this, feel free to rein me in because
I'll do my best. Yes.
I've never met this person, but but one of the great pleasures of this book is that I feel like I'm sitting next to the author while I'm reading it.
Yes.
Are there lesbians in this book?
Oh yeah. There's a couple. But mostly our protagonist, Belinda, is very much a lesbian.
Yes, that is kind of central. Wizards?
I think that the captain is a wizard.
Yeah, he's got the immortality thing. He's meant to be a colonial archetype. I'm perfectly comfortable calling him a wizard.
He's manipulative, and the thing is that like he has access. I mean, he doesn't have access to magic, but his knowledge of where the lifeboat spaceship is and what Earth was like and stuff like that, I think elevates him to wizard.
Sure. He has access to technology that is sufficiently advanced / impossible to be indistinguishable from, etc.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And they're in conflict, question mark?
Yeah, I guess that one not so much, but they're... Yeah, so I guess that's where this falls down, is that they're mostly actually working together.
Yes, although they're, to the extent that this book has like an actual antagonist, I think that he probably counts. So, yeah, lesbian's the main character, antagonist is a wizard. We can sort of we'll call it Wizards versus Lesbians because nobody's going to stop us from doing that.
Right.
Lee, who read this book first and recommended it to us, said that this has like the way that they described it was that this book contains like all of the Wizards versus Lesbian themes in this very sort of compact and and silly text from 50 years ago. And I'm not entirely sure that I agree with that. But, there's also Lee saying that it's wizards versus lesbians. So you can take that on board.
Lee
as
would
well.
argue that there's a lot of wizards in this, so.
Probably, yes. Why should you read this book?
Well, for one thing, if you are a fan of Eleanor Arnason, and you should be a fan of Eleanor Arnason, it's really fun to read some of her early work where she's just being like wacky.
Yes.
So there's that. If you've never heard of Eleanor Arnason, or just haven't gotten around to reading her books yet, for one thing, I mean, this is only going to take an hour or two of your life, and you will be consistently entertained the entire time. You will never be bored.
Yeah. No, I mean, they don't make books like these anymore.
I know.
Which is a shame. And it's like, when you hear about why this book wasn't published, like when it was written, like my first thought would have been like, oh, this is like far too silly to be published. But in fact, it was because there was a disagreement over the cover art, because people might not be able to tell that it's science fiction, which, goes to show that like, publishers would publish anything that could be, construed as science fiction as long as it was shaped like a book and had like spaceships in it at that period of time, which means that you ended up with stuff like this on the shelves. And I feel like we, as we've said many times, I feel like we've lost something, because nobody writes like this anymore.
Well, because you can no longer make a living writing like this anymore.
This is true. This is sad but true. This is one of those books that relies on you to understand that it's a satire. It's like you have to be like, oh, okay, these characters are saying horrible things, but that's not what the author thinks. And, there's like context and jokes, and we're reacting to contemporary media. And even at a distance of 50 years, this is, clear. But
yes. I mean, it does help that the first quarter of it is parodying a, quite old novel genre.
Before we move into parodying Star Trek. Yes.
Right.
The original Star Trek, of course. Also, like, this book is a queer revolution book, but it's not a queer desire is the revolutionary force book. It's something better than that to me.
Yeah.
And if you want to feel affirmed and encouraged, if you are queer or just weird, this is a good one to read, I think.
Yeah, I enjoy it because, among other things, this book has the like queer. This book would have been a fairly bold pro-gay statement in like the late 90s. So I really admire it for doing that in the 80s. And having been written in the 70s. And, so it feels a little, some of the sort of, oh, no, actually, it's okay, it's okay to be gay stuff feels a little, tepid now. Or not tepid, just, I don't know, it almost makes me, it makes me nostalgic for, it feels like something out of my, high school era gay straight alliance stuff. But okay, we've kind of gotten off track. Why shouldn't you read this book?
It is a very silly book.
It is a very silly book. Yes, if you don't like fun.
It's got a bunch of like relatively hidebound and regressive points of view in it.
Yeah.
You might find the sort of like this native tribe does this and this native tribe does that stuff a little old-fashioned, even though it is meant to be making fun of it.
Yeah, well, and the narrative does a pretty good job of undermining all the various claims that people are making. So, about this native tribe does this and this native tribe does that. So,
yeah.
But yes.
This book is not particularly interested in the sacred.
No, that's very true. Yes, I guess if you're really touchy about, having organized religion made fun of,
particularly when that organized religion might be like a native spiritual practice or something, this book is equally willing to make fun of all of that.
Yeah, but there's also like the throwaway, isn't there the throwaway line where Belinda is like, oh, well, obviously these native practices are so silly. It makes so much more sense to just worship one intangible god in an organized manner.
Yes, no, we're not being subtle.
Right, like,
It's a matter of who you feel is catching strays, I guess, is the question.
Yeah.
But I'm reaching, honestly.
Yeah. Like, again, this is going to take a couple hours of your life max, and you will not be bored throughout. I mean, I guess I'm sure that actually, if you don't like silly, you could find this deeply irritating. And it is, a little unsubtle, and it is occasionally somewhat heavy-handed satire. So it is silly enough that I find it fun, even when it's being, unsubtle. But
I one of the notes that I've written down here is that this feels like chain fiction, except it's all being written by one person.
yes, absolutely.
And if you think that sounds good, great. If you think that sounds annoying, maybe this isn't for you.
Yeah. Okay. Fair. Okay. So content warnings. There's force femme.
Yes, I was going to mention the force femme.
In such a classic science fiction manner too. That'll be a fun one to talk about.
Yeah. Beyond that, like nothing really bad happens. There's some this book is all about transformation. Characters get transformed.
In a variety of ways.
That's the force femming. There is some violence, but no death to speak of.
Yeah, not even of characters who like you expect should have died. Then it's like, oh, actually, they're fine and in a monastery somewhere.
There's cheating.
Yeah, I guess there's adultery. I guess if like adultery is a serious issue for you, there's a lot of cheating. That's about it, really. It's that it's like that. It's that the force femme and all the characters being casually racist towards each other and occasionally themselves.
Yes, or casually sexist, etc.
Or casually sexist or homophobic, etc.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, that's I think that's about it as far as the content goes.
Yeah.
So let's discuss this book.
Yeah.
Well, we missed a couple things, as is our wont. There is some implied sexual assault, and our main character, lesbian, ends up with a man. Kind of. It's a bit more complicated than that. Spoiler zone. Yeah. So Eleanor Arnison's a furry.
Yeah, seriously. Or at least Eleanor Arnison's fiction is very furry compatible. I'm going to try to rein you in about making
yeah, exactly. That's why
sweeping statements here. But yeah, I mean, Eleanor Arnison's books generally have big furry aliens, and in this one, they have anthropomorphic rats.
They have giant anthropomorphic, sort of anthropomorphic rats. The rats kind of can walk on two legs, but
they can walk on two legs, and they have long dexterous fingers, except for poor Shortpaw.
Poor Shortpaw.
Shortpaw gets a happy ending.
Yes, but you don't picture like a human shaped rat furry, or at least I didn't. You picture a giant rat with shuffling along on its hind legs with long fingers.
I mean, yeah, they're kind of like Reepicheep from the Narnia books.
Yes, or the Secret of Nim.
Or the Secret of Nim. Well, except Reepicheep, in terms of being not as tall as a human, but can and is very definitely still a rodent, but sort of interacting with the humans in a very human way.
Yeah, I would say that's about where we are, and it's the presence of giant rats in one story does not make you a furry, but the presence of giant rats to whom our main character becomes inexplicably physically attracted may make.
I guess we can put in the why shouldn't you read this is that the lesbian does end up possibly with a man. She's only attracted to the man because she first met him as a giant rat, but there's some really interesting things going on with sexual orientation in this book.
What I've written down here, which I may just make into a jingle because I feel like it's an important message, is lesbians. If you find yourself attracted to a man, as can happen, know that it's probably because he's a giant rat in disguise.
Yes.
Or several dogs in a trench coat, which is why he smells like that. This point is important enough that I have written a little jingle for it, which goes like this. Oh, you don't lose your gold star if the man's a giant rat or a furry or a monster in disguise. When that wild call is heated, his gender's superseded. Yeah, you're still in the same metaphor if he's a giant rat.
Right. Like, I mean, the thing is that, I mean, I do think that this actually should go into why shouldn't you read the book. We can, like, edit it back in or something. And by we, I mean you. Because there are people for whom, like, it's deeply upsetting that the lesbian character would end up with a man, even in a book from the 80s. But, like, I cannot emphasize enough how much this is not a story of, you know, forcing the lesbian to end up with a man because that's, you know, because, like, your story has to end with a heterosexual pairing off if it's going to have a happy ending in this era. No, it is very clear that the only reason that she is attracted to this man is because, you know, she's willing to make an exception for you know, giant anthropomorphic rats if they're charming enough.
He isn't even that charming. It really is just the rat part.
And having fallen for him as a giant anthropomorphic rat, it's actually kind of a sweet trans narrative where, you know, having fallen for him that way, she's willing to still be attracted to him as a human man.
Yeah, although less so.
less so, but she's still interested enough to give it a go, which again, you know, like that's actually a very contemporary trans story of how, you know, can you navigate your attraction to somebody pre and post their transition? And you know, I think that this actually handles that fairly well and accurately, of sort of being like, well, it's going to be complicated, but maybe it's still worth a try.
Yeah, like this book is very, very forward thinking or ahead of its time in terms of its gender and sexual politics, and to an extent where it's like one gets the sense, and I'm also sort of thinking about Arneson's later books, and this is a sort of, you know, arc that, you know, we've established lesbianism. The lesbianism is cool and normal and fine, and we have some lesbian sex scenes which are, you know, well written. And then it's like, well, okay, what next? You know, like, you know, what this, you know, we're in this, you know, space of continuous transformation. Giant rat, you know,
right? And I like that giant rat is the next step before human man.
Right, exactly. No, it's like if you arrive at human man, you're going to have to get there by a very strange process. and so, yeah, that's one of the reasons that this book feels like queer with a capital Q.
Yes, absolutely.
That the conceit is that our main character's special power is that things change around her, that she is pushing the world into a new pattern via her psychic powers.
Yes, though I enjoy that this is never actually fully established.
Yes, this is a theory.
This is a theory, and several people have, and you know, there's sort of a spiritual theory explanation for it involving patterns, and then there's a more sort of scientific explanation for it involving, like, you know, unusual psi powers. Because this is from like the era of science fiction where where you get to pretend to be hard science fiction and still have psychics.
Yes.
But like, it's never for all we know, she's just going through a really weird period in her life, because that happens sometimes. Like, you know, it's possible that just the captain is dragging her along on all these madcap adventures and blaming it on her.
Absolutely. And there's like, we're also doing something from another contemporary of this, which would be The Hitchhiker's Guide and The Infinite Improbability Drive, where it's like, if your plot is a series of adventures strung together by the barest thread of like massive coincidences.
Right, just early lampshading here.
Yeah, it can be fun to say, okay, that's why that is, you know, but it's not like our credulity was being strained in the first place. So
right, I mean, again, when you start with, you know, gothic romance, windswept manor, but also a robot, like.
Right, exactly. It's like we're in the silly space now. It doesn't really matter, you know, how believable the next plot development is. Although it's sort of fun to imagine like a contemporary science fiction nerd who would object to um, to these. Or do you expect me to believe that she then runs into this other person who is also involved in the same thing, kind of stuff. But yeah, no, the actual point of it is that she is part of a revolutionary queer movement, a revolutionary or a asexual revolution, as you might say, since that is the time period that this was being written in. And we check off a lot of boxes. We end up with a found family, with who she is she ends up loving all of them.
But this is crucial, even though they all kind of suck.
They absolutely all kind of suck, and a lot of attention is paid to the various ways in which they all
right. I think that this, in some ways this book is ahead of our time, which is, we're just now coming around to the idea that sometimes your queer found family can just kind of suck.
This is true. And that, but the particular thing where it's like, it can just kind of suck, and that's your family.
You're still stuck with them.
Right, which is sort of part of the deal with family. And, the idea of choosing them is because of, larger factors, and not, we're looking for perfect human beings, which don't exist. But so this in this case, a family can be a lesbian who's kind of dumb,
her many times great grandfather who's trapped first in the body of a robot and then in the body of a really hot Amazonian style woman.
Yes, a man who has committed probably a lot of colonial crimes in his life, including many
and also
women.
Personal crimes.
Yes. There's another one for the content warnings that I'm sure that some of his early relationships were not 100% consensual.
Yeah.
And then a neurotic native man who is prejudiced against his own culture,
and also homophobic, and is also your cousin.
And is also your cousin, and then a giant rat who is no longer a giant rat, sadly, but who is experiencing a lot of problems with the world. The giant rat has been through a lot. There are reasons.
A giant rat who's been exiled from his people for eugenics reasons.
Yes, and wounded, and he has every reason to be the kind of sort of cowardly mess that he is, but he is still the cowardly mess that he is. And and that's sort of the end point of this diffusion of radical change that is happening. But the point of it, and one of the things that made me feel really nice having read this book, is that this is this version of the revolution is not a revolution that has failed.
Yeah.
Like, even as we read this 50 years later, we're all still here. And we have not been, despite the best efforts of a wide variety of political and cultural fascists, the closet has not swallowed everybody anymore or again, and people are still being able to live their lives like this, and that feels very good.
Yeah, this is one of the retro ones, I think, that does end up making you feel, sort of positive about this time that we live in, as opposed to, oh, why can't it be the 90s again or whatever?
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of reasons why it shouldn't be the 90s again, but still,
Well, the thing about nostalgia is no matter how far back you go, it's still just us, with all the good and bad that implies. So one approach is to look back fondly on the various grand attempts to be something else, like, utopian societies and communism and all that stuff. And we're still trying those, so might as well focus on the ones that are happening now. What were we talking about?
All right, so there's so many places to dive in. Let's talk about the captain, who is, a wizard who who might end up being a lesbian by the end. I mean, he's in a woman's body, and
Yeah.
probably hasn't switched orientations. So this is a story. One of the transformations here is turning the wizard into a lesbian.
This is done by sort of divine judgment in a way.
Yes, the titular resurrection station.
Yes, who's a robot artificial intelligence who's just been given the Book of Ecclesiastes to read, and thus is basically operates in a sort of, fastidious and nervous fashion, as one might expect if, like, a series of divine laws is the only thing that you are aware of in culture. But, also in a sort of a charmingly nervous kind of and capricious kind of a way to boot.
Yeah, I was honestly expecting the resurrection station to just turn them down, but this book is a little too gentle for that. Even her terrible uncle guardian ends up, he has a nervous breakdown, retires to a monastery, and decides he's going to be a good person, instead of getting blown up with the rest of his house. So I guess it makes sense that actually the resurrection station would give in to their pleas and provide human bodies.
Well, yes, but I mean, and also because like we need this to sort of push the theme of like personal and cultural transformation to its logical conclusion, which
Right.
is that we've in a prescient fashion we've put the colonial fascist in the body of a lesbian. Fascist is not the right word. He's a pith
He's a
helmet
classic
kind of guy.
imperial, yeah,
Yeah.
imperialist, just
Mm-hmm.
a good old fashioned colonial imperialist. Um, who's he's a fun character too. Like I like that in the first chapter, the ghost of Gorwing Keep, like he's he gets to be very sort of swashbuckling and cool and being like, oh, fire isn't even the worst thing that's going to happen to Gorwing Keep today, and getting to like sweep her off in the spaceship, and then almost immediately upon arriving in the city in the next chapter, you find out just like what a shithead he was.
Yes.
Like you meet, the great 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 grandson of a woman that he totally screwed over.
The entire plot basically happens because there's a guy who remembers everything that this family did and has, six generations of resentment built up.
Yeah, and so, and again, like has good reason. It's very specifically, oh, you seduced my ancestor and then just like gave her, paid her off but gave her no support, and this is why, my family has been struggling for generations. And the captain is like, what do you expect me to do? I was cheating on my wife and my wife had a black belt in martial arts.
Yes, I love that in 19 like we're still in the 70s when martial arts are magical.
I don't necessarily know if this is magical. I think
I know, but it has the same sort of cachet, it's
right.
like, you that karate makes you deadly.
Sort of. I mean, this is also clearly supposed to be an incredibly pathetic excuse.
Yes, it is. It is. It's also a recapitulation of that nervous male joke of the era, the same one, which is why Miss Piggy knows Kung Fu. It's a combination of, oh no, what if this woman could beat me up? And, ooh, what if this woman could beat me up? It's definitely the right character to give that line to. But there's also like a certain amount of patheticness on the part of, I believe his name is Le Framboise, the raspberry.
It is Le Framboise. Yes, it is.
Who is the police chief. Has a really important and significant position in society.
Right, yeah. Who's actually doing just fine and is in fact abusing his powers as the police chief to now persecute this girl largely because she's descended from somebody
Right.
he hates.
And so what this is, in fact, is feuding between two old rich families. One of which is slightly less rich than it might otherwise have been. And if that feud hadn't happened, it would just be one old rich family. So,
Right.
one's sympathy is not entirely with anybody, which is sort of, again, one of the things that the book is about, is that, like, we're all sort of just muddling through here, but we can still, form meaningful connections with each other under these circumstances. What do you make of the Belinda's ex-girlfriend, who turns out to be Claude's ex-girlfriend, who also turns out to be married to the
To the missing anthropologist.
to the missing anthropologist.
Yeah. So I loved this plot point. First, I mean, I like, you already get that she and Claude are in love with the same woman in the first chapter, and so you're expecting, this is again like the author just refuses to commit to any plot thread for too long. You're expecting that there's going to be this like either this big emotional thing of you have to choose between us, oh I choose neither, or possibly an OT3, great. But no, it turns out that the missing anthropologist has resurfaced and in fact is their shared ex's husband, and she's like, yeah, sorry, that was just a phase while I was grieving my, I thought, dead husband. You got no hard feelings, right?
And like honestly, there aren't that many hard feelings because
right, I mean, because what? Okay, yeah, I like you got to hand it to both Belinda and Claude is that they're very dramatic people, but they both take being dumped quite well.
Well, this is like part of the general pacing of the book, which is also I think part of the satire that it's doing is that
right.
We are doing an adventure yarn here, where it's we cannot focus on any one particular event for too long because we have to be on to the next event. Like when there is first discussion of whether there are ghosts involved in any of this, which again is a question that is not actually answered, which I appreciate.
Right.
But Belinda says in her mind, could this be proof of the afterlife? She decided to worry about these questions later.
Right, and then she just never has time to, which makes sense because she really doesn't ever have time to worry about the afterlife.
Exactly. It's like, nope, we're not getting stuck in the implications of any of this. We're off to the next thing.
Right. Yeah, this really is like 4 books crammed into one quite short book. But yes. Also I really like the figure of the resurfaced anthropologist because his dynamic with Claude, again, especially for this era, I mean, you get some actually like fairly sophisticated making fun of anthropology and making fun of anthropology-based science fiction. But like some of this feels almost like sort of lovingly poking gentle fun at Ursula Le Guin.
I was about to say exactly that.
So, but like in a gentler satire perhaps than some of the other things that are being made fun of. But also just, you actually get some, even though it refuses to dwell on any question for too long, it's actually fairly nuanced handling of these things where, Claude, you meet the people from Claude's tribe who are, and who are like traditional, and then Claude is like this, human educated native man. Native is what they call their aliens, and so like you get to watch him be sort of, sometimes he's disgusted by all of this sort of human decadence and the fact that Belinda is a deviant and a pervert, and sometimes he's equally sort of embarrassed about his own tribe's backwards ways. But then when he starts arguing with Nigel or whatever, the anthropologist, and he'll be Nigel will say something about the tribe that he was living with for the last 2 years, and Claude will be like, that's not accurate, that's not how we do things. And and some of this is definitely the like white academic trying to explain the guy's culture to him, but some of this is also clearly the guy who's grown up sort of, Western educated and who, has this like, who only his childhood ways can be the actual accurate reflections of his culture. Like he has to be the arbiter of his culture, positive or negative.
And he's competing with this other man for authenticity.
Right. And the thing is that neither of them, the narrative doesn't let either of them have, perfect dibs on authenticity. Like both of them have obvious gaps in their knowledge and understanding.
Right. The point being that there is no one authentic way to be a member of an entire planetary culture or even national ethnic culture.
Exactly.
and yeah, it feels, again, as you said, very, very advanced.
Like, honestly, this is a more nuanced handling of the issue than I see in a lot of contemporary science fiction dealing with these things. So,
Yeah. I mean, well, it feels like somebody who's like been in it and talked to a lot of people, you know,
yes.
reflecting that. And there is, it is really interesting because to think about it, because like Arneson's books all sort of fall into this category of quote unquote anthropological science fiction. That's what, her Wikipedia article basically says.
Yeah, which
And
is also like Le Guin and
mhm. And there's a lot of points of comparison to Le Guin with they're both very left wing, and they're both very interested in revolutions of a personal and cultural kind, and different and possible different ways that one could construe a society.
mm-hmm.
But yeah, no, I I thought that there might have been like a couple of, as you say, gentle digs. I think possibly the native psychic powers seemed like a nod to what is it, Rocannon's World?
Really, yeah, Rook Hannon's World, but really all the early Hainish novels, all of them have something like
Yeah,
this.
where the Hainish go to a planet and the natives have a particular culture, and then there's some problem with or a particular power or a particular element that the Hainish try to incorporate into themselves, and there's a question about how colonialism works and how cultural exchange works, and sort of the left hand of darkness is like the part where the book where this reaches its apex and breaks, which is why the left hand
Yeah.
of darkness is so good. But
Yes, but like the earlier ones, I'm blanking on the name, which is annoying because like they're just right upstairs, like they're literally right above me. But the ones that are the ones that aren't Rokinen's World and the word for the world is forest, but there's two others featuring this one planet.
that's Planet of Exile and City of Illusion.
Specifically, the ability of humans and the native humanoids to interbreed is like, making them genetically compatible is like the entire, big mystery of that book. And here it's like, oh yeah, no, it's just psychic powers. Never mind. We don't need like a novel length evolutionary reason for how these people are like slowly adapting to the world.
Or it may be magic. Or it may
be
be,
magic. We
it
don't
may
know.
be some other power, maybe ghosts. Like this book is fundamentally uninterested in pinning down the whys and is more interested in the implications.
But like very, it's like, oh yeah, Belinda's mom really so good at psychic manipulation that once she was introduced to a microscope, she immediately figures out genetic engineering,
Right.
and just like and like immunotherapy, and just like rebuilds her immune system so that she's not rejecting this half human pregnancy.
Exactly.
Problem solved.
Exactly. So yeah, I think that you're correct in spotting the just a lick of satire there, a loving lick of satire.
Yes.
The loving lick of satire.
Also, this just brief side note, as Leah pointed out to me earlier, one thing that is sort of great / awful about this book is that society has changed in many ways. We're on another planet, and all this advanced technology, but academia is the exact same, and it's just as awful as it always is, including stuff like it's new Harvard. Like, this is obviously a joke because most of these other things have science fiction-y names, gold wattles or whatever for whatever the birds are. But no, the highest, the most prestigious institution is just New Harvard.
Indeed. Yeah, and the academics that we meet are very much just the academics that we meet.
Right. And and Claude really wants to be a professor, but they don't give natives tenure, so.
Right, exactly. And the anthropologist is like, oh, I want to go with you to the foreign planet,
But I have
see
tenure, I can't
but I have
leave.
tenure. Exactly.
Right. It's like, oh, here's the anthropology chance of a lifetime, but no, tenure.
Yes, well, And he's married.
I guess.
Yeah,
And he's married. Well, Marianne
understandable.
could come too. But I mean, I think that the real issue here is that New Harvard or whatever isn't going to grant him a century-long sabbatical.
Indeed. The book ends, incidentally, like right as we're going to go back and see what the planet is like after
200 years.
yeah, 200 years after the sort of the seed of Belinda's revolution is took shape, and we don't get to see it, of course, but it is like
Yeah, that would involve actually delivering on all of the we'll deal with that later's of the
well,
book.
exactly, but there is a sort of like a with the luxury of like reading this at a 50-year remove, it's like, well, look around you, see what's happened, kind of a situation.
Yeah, it's sort of appropriate that in fact now it ends on an afterword that was written for the Aqueduct Press edition. Incidentally, shout out to Aqueduct Press for reprinting this.
Yes, I'm very glad that this one was not lost, or that this one is available for us to read.
Speaking of retroness, one of the specifically the problem with the cover that sank this book with its first publisher was the buyers at B. Dalton's and Walden Books.
Well, so I don't miss you. I don't miss you two specifically.
Right. Yeah, well, some things
have changed.
Some things are more timeless than others.
Yes. And well, I mean, and as we've said, there are consequences in many directions. Meanwhile, what's happening on Earth?
Should we move to talking about what Earth has turned into in the absence of humanity?
I suppose we should. There was a ecological catastrophe, and then humans moved into dome cities, and then there was then the
rats and the giant rats and the robots teamed up against the Dome City humans.
That's so funny.
I know. The Rat Robot Alliance.
It just passes completely unremarked upon.
Right.
And it's like the only reasons that the robots end up at war with the humans is because the humans fired on them from their dome cities when they approached. Because the robots are, relatively chill. But we still need to tick off all of our like science fiction apocalypse,
right.
notes as we're going on here. So it is a robot uprising and a robot thing and a giant rat thing and an apocalypse, but it's also a return to Eden apocalypse,
right.
because the Earth has been entirely reclaimed by nature, by very gentle nature, despite the gnats.
Yes, and even the giant mutant rats, which you're. I like that you're told very quickly what kind of parody satire this is going to be when they just give you a quick rundown of what's gone on. Welcome back, humans. Here's everything you missed on Earth. Beware of the giant mutant rats. And then you meet the giant mutant rats, and like they're assholes, but they're not deadly or anything. I mean, they're pretty awful to Short Paw, but like to the humans, they're just like, oh, humans. Well, we're not gonna, in honor of our even though the other we've just fought a horrible war with the other humans, 100 years ago or whatever. In honor of our creator, we're not gonna kill you. Off you go.
And in honor of their twin gods, Mendel and Darwin.
Yes, the statue of Darwin is important to note has a giant erect phallus.
Yes, these notes are so good. This book is full of just like these funny little jokes. And then later when they're talking to Short Paw about it, it's like, oh, we don't take it that seriously. We just, we thought that religion was an important part of having culture, and so we picked these two. And
right.
But they still take it seriously enough that he is outcast because of his fingers,
Right. Because his fingers are too short, and rats all want long, elegant, human-like fingers.
But yeah, Earth is mostly just an excuse for the old man / robot / hot lesbian, depending on where in the book you're looking for him or her, to be like, that's a cow, to tell his alien companions all about the exotic Earth flora and fauna.
Yes. Also, speaking of the human apocalypse, I do also really enjoy that the loudspeaker that's like and that announces that's like just telling you the history and giving you your giant lore dump. Um, it's one of the things it says is I heard the final broadcast from an enclave in China. I didn't understand the words since I know no Chinese. It's like, okay, that's real helpful. Even in like, in 2301 when humanity is fighting a desperate war, they don't bother to like program their robots to understand each other's languages. That would be too much effort.
Yes. That's a very sort of 70s science fiction touch, I
Right.
think.
Yeah, because of course, these days it's interesting because you also get in all of the sort of automatic translation software, which I think is a big part of why I think this is funny to me is that this is also the era of automatic translation software, being a science fiction thing as opposed to just being like yet another thing that's actually kind of crappy
Right.
about the internet right now.
Back to auto chain fiction and the relatability of showering. One thing that I wanted to talk about was the way that the book is paced and sort of the way the rhythm is broken up. Like unusually, and I don't know if this is like part of the satire or just like part of the working rhythm of this particular book, is that we follow Belinda very closely, and like basically every time she goes to sleep and every time she wakes up, we're there, and we get a description of her going to sleep and a description of her waking up and going on to the next day. And we also get a number of like not erotic at all, but just very like, isn't it great to take a shower descriptions of her showering, and like how comfortable things are, or how like, and I've this is part of what made me feel like a real kinship to this book. It's like the most important things in this character's life are like getting good sleep, showering, and looking at birds. Because there's also a lot of looking at very specific like alien birds and thinking about them, even though they don't have anything to do with the plot. And this sort of, given all of the silliness that's going on around it, this like kind of nails down a sense of the real and the mundane that keeps the whole book from flying away.
Right, like it grounds the book in like a lot of madcap satires, especially from this era, don't have this, and this ends up. I don't know. It did give it a sort of emotional grounding and sense of sort of attachment to the characters, even though they're all kind of terrible people, that I think a lot of similar books lack.
Yeah.
And part of that is like being close to Belinda and getting these rhythms, and the fact that like it doesn't dwell on them in terms of sort of long meditations on how great a shower is or whatever. It's just you get a sense that even as everything else in her life is getting increasingly weird and awful, she's still she's still the sort of this living, breathing human who's capable of noticing when she does or doesn't get sleep, and the difference between real coffee and her planet's coffee, and the birds, and
and like what's the spaceship shower like? That would be one of the things that I would have been interested in, under these circumstances.
right, yeah,
Among all these life altering, conditions, it's like, where are the points of comfort and familiarity, and what's like good on a day-to-day immediate basis.
yeah. And I guess part of how it works is that because Belinda is looking for these points of comfort and familiarity just to like stay sane throughout her adventures, and because she's doing that, I think it makes her more real and like as a person and as a character.
Agreed. So do you,
which helps with this, even amidst all the silliness.
yeah. So do you, I since we didn't really get back to it, do you think that the transing of the Great White Hunter's gender is meant to be an ironic punishment in a sort of,
Oh, absolutely.
Misty Lackey kind of way?
Um, I don't think quite as, I don't know, because like the Lackey kind of way, it's, being subject to sexual violence is built in, and like, and that's, I don't think, and given that, she's now this like 6.5 foot tall Amazon or whatever, I don't think that it's a vows and honor style. Oh, we're going to make you subject to the same kind of sexual violence that you, subjected others to. I think it's more of a, you're used to being this kind of, you're used to being this kind of person. You have this sense of self. It has led you to be kind of a shithead. And now you're being forced to just have this like complete different experience. And the Resurrection Station is very upfront about this. It's like, oh yeah, no, I like to give people different kinds of bodies. I think it's good for them, which is a very, this is a very 70s, 80s understanding of gender before we got to the idea that, gender dysphoria was actually a terrible thing to do to a person.
Right.
It's sort of more of this idea of, it's before there's an understanding that people might even feel gender dysphoria. And so, it's just, it's good for you. It's good for you to be, to be stuck in a completely different body for a while.
I guess it's the for a while bit. It's the
well, he had a lifetime as a human. He had an even longer lifetime as a robot. Now he gets a lifetime as a hot woman. I mean, he'll deal.
Yes, he was a human. Now he's a woman.
Yes, he's a human man, but
right.
I meant in contrast to robot. But yes,
and I suppose this is where the big wizards versus lesbians themes come in that Lee was talking about, which is that we find ourselves with the colonial like imperial power located in the body of a lesbian. It doesn't come out the usual way,
right?
that we manage it in these books, and the lesbian body in question was not occupied at the time, so this isn't
There's no possession narrative here.
There's no possession narrative here, but it still is like, okay, now the power looks like this. What does that mean?
Yeah, of course, the question is how much power he's really going to have at this point. I mean, he's got
a spaceship,
Well, he's got a spaceship, but he's got to share it with 3 other people. And, they're going back to a planet. He was already a man out of time when he was a robot. And, and then La Framboise, the raspberry police captain, destroyed his and Belinda's inheritance, which she was way more upset about than Belinda. Belinda was like, oh, well. She's much more upset that the police captain is going to attempt to find some way to arrest her for murder. But, he's lost his inheritance. He's lost his body. He's lost both of his planets. He's lost Earth, and he's also kind of lost his new colony, because by the time he goes there, it's already moved past him, and by the time he goes back, it's going to be another 2 centuries. So he's got nothing anymore other than a spaceship, which again, he has to share with 3 other people who increasingly don't particularly respect him. This
is true. And I suppose that's part of the ongoing transformation is the attenuation of these roots. I think that it's interesting that he the password to the spaceship is Norse poetry. And so there is this sort of, there's a lot of sort of racial elements and fragments like running around in any direction.
Here. Also, I do wonder what. Okay, maybe you should cut this because I don't want to get Aqueduct Press in trouble, but I do wonder if they actually got permission to reuse that so much of If We Make It Through December, because I did not see an acknowledgement till the copyright page. So I'm pretty sure they didn't get permission.
And I'm fairly sure that we don't have any snitches in our audience. Nobody listens to this anyway.
But yeah, also, I guess why shouldn't you read this book? Well, I had If We Make It Through December stuck in my head for the rest of the day, so... Which is fine. It's a fine song, but...
Well, there's... we can comfort ourselves with the fact that the poem that the singing dolphins... We didn't even mention the intelligent dolphins.
Yeah. who sing like castrati and who were specifically trained to sing so that they could fill the castrati roles, but they're all castrati, so they still can't put on human opera, and they had to write their own music instead.
Fantastic. And it's like, unlike the mad scientist who created the rats, who was relatively sane, the mad scientist who created the dolphins was not sane enough to think about, for example, the implications of wheeling out a dolphin in a tank onto an opera stage to share a space with humans. But the anonymous 16th century lay that the Elizabethan lay that the dolphin sings about whether women are in fact suited to love or whether love is a male ploy is probably out of copyright.
Oh yes, absolutely.
If it ever was in it. So, that one's going to be fine.
Yes, and is also that, which touches on the themes of the book. Good job, dolphins showing up to be briefly a sort of Greek dolphin chorus.
There is so much poetry in this little book. You got Ben Jonson, you got Walt Whitman, you got Norse Eddas. You got a whole bunch of original poetry and prayers. The author has magpie eyes. It sort of makes sense with all of the misshelved crystal cases. If we make it through December, showing up in the Wagner case and that kind of thing. It's our protagonist's chaotic energy remixing the culture around her. So in tribute to that, here's the anonymous Elizabethan poem that the dolphins sing to the tune of If We Make It Through December. Let's see how far I can do this. Hey, down and down did Diane sing, amongst her virgins sitting. Then love, there is no vainer thing, for maidens most unfitting. When women knew no woe, but lived themselves to please, men's feigning guiles they did not know, the grounds of their disease. Unborn was false suspect. Okay, that's probably enough of that for now.
Yeah, I don't know if there's much else though to say about the dolphins.
No, they come, they go. They're funny.
I think
part of this episode
they're funny, and they're very much like this is again like making fun of the science fiction at the time. Oh yeah, you have to uplift dolphins. You've also uplifted rats, but like if you're going to uplift rats, you have to also have uplifted dolphins. So here's the dolphins. They're off doing their thing. They're singing.
Right. Yeah. Part of our episode on this book was always just going to be repeating the jokes that we liked, which is one of the occupational hazards of doing criticism on something that you just like a lot.
Yeah.
But there you go. Do we have any minor notes?
Yeah, actually, I did also want to talk about so again, like this book is just constantly sort of messing with what you think is going on. Like it tells you, oh, there was there's all this nuclear war and thus there's giant mutant rats, and you go, oh, okay, that makes sense. And then you find out later, no, the giant mutant rats were actually genetically engineered by a mad scientist. And similarly, you're told, oh, humanity is gone. It's nothing but robots and giant mutant rats. But then there are still humans. The humans, like so many other things, just kind of suck. But they're there.
Yes.
There's still humans on Earth. They're just awful. And I enjoy that, first you think the humans are gone, and then it's like, oh, exciting. No, humanity has survived. And then you're like, actually, I kind of prefer the giant rats.
Yes. And what is it that these new humans suffer from is just sort of existential lack of. It's actually hard to put your finger on it. They seem to be kind of.
They're just kind of blah.
Yeah. Like it's sort of, the new humans are actually feel like maybe a commentary on late stage hippiedom, because the sort of moral abandonment that they find themselves in. Like, we don't really want to do anything, but we will do anything just if it occurs to us to do it.
Right. And I like, you have a sibling pair and they're like, well, we figured with a new body it wasn't incest, but then It turns out we weren't really attracted to each other, so maybe there's something to the incest taboo. Who knows? Who cares? And like
Yeah.
everyone else is just sort of listening to them appalled.
Yeah, that feels like a response to like burnouts, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and particularly given sort of the squirming desire, again, not to, say that the author of this book might have a short attention span. But like to be on to the next interesting idea, that
Yeah.
the sort of that kind of personal malaise is like the least attractive thing of all of the various like weird and flawed cultures that we move through on our way through this book. More on this when we discuss Biting the Sun, or have already discussed Biting the Sun, depending on how time works.
Yeah, they're the least interesting, and we move through them pretty fast. And then we get to the resurrection station. The resurrection station is like, yeah, I definitely feel like I've screwed up with these guys, but I don't know what I'm doing wrong.
Poor
And
the poor resurrection station, which has
it's
just
trying so
been
hard.
given like A, the world must run by rules, and B, guilt. Those are the
Right.
two things that it's been given. And so it spends all of its time trying to figure out its own rules and thinks that it will eventually. Tough.
I know. But yeah, and then actually, while we're on the subject of incest, it is, there's all of these sexual revolutions and changes, and then Belinda's like, wow, my great 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 grandfather / mother is now really hot, and then she goes, no, that's incest. Okay, she's really hot. No.
We
Like,
do have to draw the line somewhere.
we have
it
to,
turns
yeah,
out.
it's there's this sexual revolution going on, and giant mutant rats, good.
Yes.
Your ancestor, bad.
Very much so.
Which I agree with. Good call, Belinda. Your instincts are correct in this particular instance.
All right.
All right. Do you have any minor notes?
No. I'm just because we're never going to cover it. I wanted to say that this book reminded me of Oreo, in some
We
ways.
can cover Oreo sometime. I did read it.
Yeah, that it's very much not Wizla's.
Yeah, it's true.
But
neither was Moby Dick, so.
well, that is true. But in terms of like being a weird special girl protagonist written by a weird special girl author, and that just keeps floating from place to place to place and is interested. I mean, I think it's partially a product of the time and partially a product of like being a particular kind of person in that time.
Mm-hmm.
And I just wish that Fran Ross had gotten to grow up and write her, Woman of the Iron People. Which,
Yeah.
sometimes you do and sometimes you don't.
Which we should also cover at some point.
Absolutely. Again, not really Wizla's, but
Worth covering.
worth covering. Yeah, no, read A Woman of the Iron People.
And Ring of Swords.
And Ring of Swords. Like, actually, read A Woman of the Iron People if you want, like, this author operating at the peak of her powers.
Mm-hmm.
If you read this, or if you're interested in what we have to say about this author. Also read the author's biography because it's nuts. But read Ring of Swords if you're a furry.
I mean, also, like, Ring of Swords also has a lot of, it has, I think if you're into Alliance Union era Cherry, then you'll enjoy Ring of Swords.
Yeah, Cherry is definitely, I mean, once again, for the furries, but Cherry is definitely the thought that I had in my head.
So
Wow, an author who can be Le Guin and Cherry.
I know,
Yeah.
Eleanor Arneson, guys. Everyone's gotta check out Eleanor Arneson. It's really criminally underappreciated science fiction author.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and on that note.
On that note, we will call this one done.
All right.
Thank you, folks. Talk to you soon.
Thanks. Bye.